All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are going to get started again. I'm going to say right around minute marker 2, just to give everyone a chance to come on in. So if you're catching this later, catching the replay, just fast forward to minute 2. That's when we're going to get started on our topic of tonight, which is 7 common emotions that people who emotionally eat or have dieting issues tend to contend with. So we're just going to for next time, I'm going to try to get some hold music. Hello, Iris. How are you? Like I said, we're going to continue to go. We're going to go tonight again at the 2-minute mark to just get everybody a chance to come on in. Hello, JoJo. How are you ladies doing this evening? Hopefully good. Good. Fantastic. We are coming to the end of the challenge. Can't believe it. It's been a busy week. I've done challenges before, but this is the first one of this nature, so it's been good. It's been interesting that my computer crashed in the middle of it, so that was magical, but we are making do with what we have. We can get going in just another 15 seconds or so. Good. Okay. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. My name is Kristen Morgan, and you are at day 4. I don't know why I keep losing track. Day 4 of the 5-day Kickstart to a diet-free life. And today we are talking about emotional eating. So here we are, Coffee with Christy Live again, doing a video to supplement what I talked about in the email today. So I know today's email might have felt like not quite as actionable as you might have hoped. Emotional eating and the concept of it is really difficult to tackle in just like one email. So I really focused today on, in the email, about the root of emotions. You are welcome, Iris. Is that most of the time people are a lot of times avoiding facing their difficult emotions. I know that's not the case for everybody. I know we have someone in the group who actually emotionally eats now because she would shut down prior. So obviously everybody's different, but a lot of times people are eating emotionally because they don't want to turn and face what they are dealing with. Now, I'm not a therapist, so I do want to preface this by saying that if there is an emotional issue or concern in your life that runs very deep, and that if looking directly in the face of this emotion, if that's going to be extremely difficult for you, that you might need support on that, I highly encourage you consider talking to a therapist, because a lot of times, or many times, people who come to me and have this issue, they call themselves emotional eaters. It's very common to see that people have experienced trauma or abuse or something related, something very, very traumatizing. And I'm not saying that you need to have trauma to go to therapy. This is only one thing the point is you have to assess, like, at what point can you healthfully stare your emotions in the face and start to handle them? Or is that going to be a lot and need the guidance of a therapist? So I'm going to be talking tonight about 7 emotions that are really common in people who call themselves emotional eaters. And I get a lot of this information from Karen Koenig, who is an excellent social worker who does a lot of work on emotions and emotional eating. Sorry, my dog is scratching her side if you hear jingling. So that's what I'm going to talk about tonight from my perspective, the research perspective, and what I've seen people face. Okay, so again, this is not something that you're going to be able to solve in the 15, 20 minutes that we're here tonight. This challenge today in this video is a lot about awareness and encouraging you to examine what you need to do to identify why you are emotionally eating. Okay. And it can be deep, and it's something, like I said, I go into great depth with my clients and in my program as far as that. So let's just get into the meat of the program here. The first one that I see a lot of people experience is guilt. Okay. And guilt can take guilt is essentially feeling bad about something. It's not necessarily it's not a permanent medical condition, but if you feel bad about something, like if you fail to meet your own expectations and standards, you tend to feel guilty. All right. A lot of times people say that, oh, so-and-so made me feel guilty. Well, no one can make you feel guilty. No one can make you feel anything. How you feel and respond to situations comes from the inside. Okay. So guilt is often the manifestation of you want something to be a certain way, but you're not meeting it. Like in the food realm, say, a good, perfect day of eating for you looks like X, Y, Z, and then this for dinner and that for dinner. So like you've got this ideal, and then when you don't meet that ideal, you feel guilty, like you're like bad, like you did something wrong. So that can apply to a lot of things in life, not just food. So I usually suggest for people who, when you go to examine yourself, is guilt something that you struggle with? Because it may not be for you, but other people, it's a real problem. Like they feel bad and sorry and guilty over a lot of different things. Moms get it. So some people have the personality to really feel guilty about and it really boils down to not meeting your own standards. So a lot of times you have to really, if you find yourself being a guilty feeling person, I usually suggest trying to take a look at the standards you're trying to meet and to try to examine if those standards need to be set. And this is funny because I know people say, like, set high standards for yourself and shoot for the stars, and that's a great concept. But on a day-to-day basis, I actually find that setting your expectations lower, you have a lot better chance of success. Okay, so I used to have a very high expectation after I had my baby to continue my 60 minutes of exercise a day, like 4 or 5 days a week. Not really sure what was wrong with me. Not really sure why I thought I could do that. It was just, for me, it was too hard. And I felt a lot of guilt, shame, and disappointment in myself. But once I lowered my expectations to 30 minutes, 3 days a week, that's like my new internal standard. And it took a while to accept that. I meet that on a regular basis. Boom. The guilt about my exercise is gone. Okay, so think about if guilt is something you struggle with. Think about your standards. Think about whether or not you're allowing other people to make you feel that way, and turn toward your guilt and start facing that head on. Okay? So another thing that that goes deeper than guilt is the concept of shame. Number 2 is shame. And I know I've had some women in the group who, with personal talks with them, I know that they experience shame. And shame is much deeper than guilt. They're kind of like distant cousins, guilt and shame. It's because shame, it's like, and a lot of times you say, I'm ashamed, when like you're embarrassed, and it's not used correctly. Shame is really about you not feeling like you feel like something is literally wrong with you. If you feel guilty, it's like something you did wasn't necessarily right, or, it's like, it's more forgivable, but shame goes deep. So think about this, and I see this a lot, again, in trauma victims, abuse, having a lot of people who've been bullied, and there's usually a reason that somebody feels deep shame. And so if shame is something that you struggle with, you want to think about, because it does have a purpose. All these emotions have a purpose. As I mentioned in the email, it's to get you thinking about what's going on internally, like the senses think about what's going on outside, and the emotions help you keep a track of what's going on inside. So shame can be a driver to keep you on the right track of like what is right and wrong for you. But at the same time, it can really become overwhelming. And I see a lot of people who struggle with shame in therapy, but and I see a lot of people who are overweight, I use that term with quotes, or, have a larger body, feel shame. Like they don't feel guilty about it, they feel shame about it, like something is wrong with them because their bodies, and this comes from the diet messages that we're constantly exposed to. You should be thinner, you should be smaller, you should be fitter, you should be eating this, you should be eating that, you should be looking like this. And it's like years and years and years of that can get in your head. And so that's why I see a lot of people who not necessarily are the trauma roots, but like of just being in a larger body and feeling deeply ashamed, like something is wrong with you because you are less of a person because of that. And that can be a difficult emotion to turn and face. And I do that in my programs too. It's like we turn and we face that head on, that belief that that because of your weight, you are a shameful person. I mean, it's just such BS, but we don't realize it because it's so deep inside here. If you've ever said, I hate my body. Yes, being teased, overweight as a child, those are our formative years. Like people are teasing you about your weight. I mean, that gets into your head. It's deep and it's difficult. And sometimes we don't even realize that we feel shame. But it can run so deep. And again, it's something that I work on with my clients because it's very, very debilitating. Okay. So think about where you are on the shame factor, and if that's something that you need to, because I'm here to tell you, you are absolutely no less of a person or less worthy because of your weight. And I know I can tell you that, and sometimes some of you may go in one ear and out the other because you've been hearing that. You hear that a lot, or maybe you don't. But I mean, there is no law of physics of the world that says people who are of a certain higher weight are less worthy. It's a myth perpetuated by, people who are thinner or research or doctors or whatever. They tell you this, and that it's like that they make you think that you have to change. And that's not the case. Okay. I'm not saying that weight loss is bad, at all. But when it can't be like the focus, because you've got to start accepting that what you are today is worthy, period. And that is a process. So that is that. All right. Number 3 is helplessness. Okay. So if you've ever felt like, it's a very challenging feeling that we experience because it's very emotionally difficult. It's very physically difficult. You feel like you are totally out of control. It's almost like a small death. Like nothing around you can control. You just feel absolutely helpless. And it's like if you feel helpless if you feel like you need to lose 50 pounds, but it's like a helpless, excuse me, just a completely helpless situation, you may not even want to face the fact that it's not a helpless situation. It's very difficult to come out of that. It's like, the despair that comes with helplessness and the belief that you're not in control of your health can be very, very difficult. And I'm not going to sit here and say, there are many things that we can't control. But when I say control your helplessness, it's a lot about mindset. And because I know that some people have cancer, and that often can't be controlled, or, you can't control an abusive partner and things of that nature. So but a lot of times it's how you react to your feelings of helplessness. Because another thing I work on is mindset. So much of this process is mindset. So much of it, okay? Because there are so many external factors, how much of that you let in. So when you're feeling helpless, if you feel like that's something you struggle with, It's time to face that head on and say, and try to establish how actually helpless you are. Because chances are, hello, Michelle. I know it's been a super crazy week here too. Chances are, if you feel helpless, there is likely something that you still can do to your situation. So a lot of it's about facing it head on and taking back the power that the perceived helplessness has over you. Okay, so like I said, there's all of us have things in our lives we can't control, circumstances, but how we react to those circumstances, completely different story. Okay? So another one is anxiety. Okay, and I will admit that anxiety is never something that I struggled with. Just as a person, I struggle with a lot of these, some of these other emotions, but anxiety can be very debilitating. There are physical symptoms, like your body's on code red, like you're anxious. I know that your heart can beat, your stomach can feel upset. So in that heightened state of anxiety and anxiousness, it can be difficult because it is difficult, and food can often be, for some people, a buffer, because you're looking in this constant state of anxiety, you're looking for something to soothe, and food can be very soothing. So worrying also is a thing. Okay, so if you have anxiety, this is another thing to really may need additional assistance and help. Yes, it is. I know that it's horrible, Iris. I can't say that I've experienced it, so I sympathize with you. Of course, I know everybody knows somebody with anxiety, and I know it can be debilitating. The worry, the subtle manifestations of anxiety. It's not. Some people have all-out panic attacks, but you're not always in a state of a panic attack, but you're in a state of tension and worry all the time, and that can be, you can get muscle aches, cramps, a general negative mentality. It can exhaust you. It's a very difficult thing that definitely sometimes needs medication and treatment. So continuing, if anxiety is something that you suffer with and you feel like that's connected to food, turning and facing that head on continually is very important. Now, as I mentioned in my email, emotionally eating to soothe yourself, there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? It's when you don't have a full arsenal of coping tools that it really becomes a problem and something to look at. Like if you have anxiety and a chocolate bar today is going to help you just kind of like zen, bring a little serotonin into the brain, and in a TV show, do it, okay? Soothe it and move on. But then when you move on, be thinking about your entire arsenal. What else can you use? What else needs to go in your toolbox? Do you need meditation? Do you need more exercise? Do you need to be talking to somebody? Do you need medication? So, again, with anxiety and with all of these, emotional eating is okay to soothe these. It's okay. But it's got to be part of a toolbox. Okay? So another thing I want to talk about in emotion is disappointment. So, disappointment happens when, our needs, our desires, they're not met, right? And you hope for one thing, you end up with another, and that can be very discouraging, and they can be very different levels of things. There's disappointment, like you wanted a certain latte and you got a different latte. And then there's you perhaps marry someone and you expect a wonderful, great, long life, and your marriage doesn't work out for whatever reason. That is a deep, disparaging, difficult sense of disappointment. And it can be very difficult it can be very painful when you're let down by other people, and when you're let down by yourselves. So if you find yourself that you've had any great disappointments in your life, or that's how you tend to respond, something to turn and face. Okay, so I've got some notes here. Is that there are a lot of other, disappointment can feel really bad, but its purpose is to keep you moving toward what is beneficial for you in your life. Okay, so a lot of us get upset that we feel these negative emotions, but they all have purpose. So when you're feeling, for example, disappointment, it's very disappointing, but again, it can drive you, if you take it and ball it up and let it drive you forward towards what's best for you. That's one way to take this emotion and turn it and go forward. So turning and facing your disappointment issues can be very, very therapeutic. Okay, what are you letting in and what are you not letting in? Are you setting a standard too high or are you not? Who's disappointing you? So it's again something that you can really, it can really be disconcerting. Okay, so another emotion that I wanted to talk about here is, there's two more, and this one is confusion. And I know this might sound a little odd, like what does that even mean? In a world we live in today, in the news, in the media, everything that we hear about what's good for us and what's bad for us, it can be very confusing to know like what is right for you and what is wrong for you, and just feeling confused in itself about what to do and where to go. And if, like, a lot of us dieters just have this feeling of like, I have no idea what to do to fix this problem. I don't feel helpless because I want to do something, but I'm confused about what to do. And that can be very discouraging, and that can lead you to like not want to do anything at all. So that uncertainty can be very painful. Confusion and uncertainty. A lot of times confusion comes with a lot of emotions. So this happens when you just don't know where to turn. You're just confused about like what is happening and what is going to work for you. So if that's a good, if you're confused about like your health and your nutrition, that's a good time to, seek out unconfusing it. Speaking with or working with someone like me or a therapist or, a personal trainer or whatever might help you alleviate your frustrations. Okay. And the last and very profound one, at least for me, is because I have experienced this myself, is loneliness. Okay. So loneliness is, it's not a bad thing. Obviously, none of these can necessarily, they can be turned, like there's different levels of loneliness. There's, no, my husband's not around tonight, I'm lonely. And then there's like different levels of deep loneliness. Like if you don't have a partner and you desire one, that can be a deeper sense of loneliness. And loneliness can manifest, when you are feeling that you may not have a purpose, that you're not necessarily fitting in. Not that not fitting in is a bad thing because we want to be ourselves, but like there's this deep disconnection. That's what I would say. Disconnection from other people, and meaning feelings of purpose. And I have been there. And that was very difficult for me. When I was about 24, I had never dated anybody. The person just hadn't come along for me. And I was feeling profound, like, sense of loneliness in that I was seeing a future without anybody. It felt like it at the time, but it was very, very difficult. I gained some weight during that time because I also didn't know what I wanted to do with my life as far as college. And it was this very deep disconnection. So thinking about that is something as well. So that again takes some work, but if you feel lonely, facing your loneliness head on could look like, okay, am I just holding myself back? Am I not putting myself out there? Am I not getting involved in my interests? Like, am I just sitting here being complacent? So again, that can push you, and you can focus. That can lead you to focus on food because food's always there. Food tastes good. It doesn't usually let you down, and chocolate consistently tastes good, and it's a connection to something. For me, it was hard to accept how deeply connected I was to food, because that actually made me feel a little bit ashamed. Like, gosh, why are you so deeply connected to this food? Like, it's taking it away when I would diet was like profoundly difficult and devastating. Like, I recently got food sensitivity testing done to help get my lupus under control. And there are a few things I need to cut out for medical, like my body is allergic to it. So I needed to remove those. And that was profoundly difficult for me. Far more difficult than I expected it to be. I felt incredible stress. And as I tried to cut this out, the dieting mentality reared its ugly head. And I was like, whoa, I don't think I can do this. And I've slowly evened out and, kind of gotten into a good flow of things, but it was a grieving and a mourning period. So just accepting that you are deeply connected to your food is okay. It doesn't make you shouldn't be ashamed. You shouldn't, that's the first step in, it's like we are deeply, intimately connected to food, ladies. We are, okay? Let's just accept that and work with that instead of trying to break it off. Let's try to mold the relationship into something different, okay? Because we are going about it in the wrong way. You and I will probably always be deeply, intimately connected to food. So by embracing that in a different way, you're going to just come out the other side a different person. But anyways, that is all. I looked at the timer and I have been talking for 25 minutes, and I know y'all need to get back to your day, evening. But I hope this was helpful to you, insightful. My best advice, turn and face your emotions and get help if you need it. And start to explore with curiosity what some of the issues might be, okay? So if you have any questions, pop them in the comments below. Tomorrow we have one last video about helping you to go forward with this information and what to do with it. I'm talking about a few of the struggles you might encounter as you go, because this is all pretty profound, life-changing, like big changes. So I want you to be prepared for what's ahead and what some of the struggles you are. And I also have a super awesome announcement that I am really excited about. And that is going to be tomorrow night, around this time, 8:30. And then I'll talk about that concept of going forward. I will give you my very, very special announcement. And then we are going to announce the winners of the contest. So get your points in, and I will announce those winners tomorrow evening. So I hope you guys have a good night. And I will talk to you tomorrow at 8:30. Bye.